Hey guys, Attorney Walter Knott. We're trying out some different technology. Before we were just using mostly the Logitech, camera up top. I'm just seeing if I like it more than the other, but let's get right to the video. Now we're using the blue microphone and the Logitech. All right, let's go right to it for the camera. SSDI benefits may get a 2022 boost, and here's why. They have this act. They've been trying to push it through year after year, but it's likely probably to pass as a gift from the Democratic Party in 2022, and here's why. Okay. As you know, President Biden made a significant amount of promises as to what he wanted to do with Social Security disability benefits in the form of SSDI benefits and SSI benefits. The worked benefits, the poverty benefits where you haven't worked or haven't worked enough. Okay, cool. So we got that. SSDI benefits, this is not an SSI video so much so, but SSDI benefits are heavily affected by the Social Security 2100 Act. This act does a lot of things. It removes the 24-month wait period. It gets rid of that 5-month, penalized, we won't give you back pay, restriction. It does all of these things and also increases slightly the SSDI benefits. So this is an increase that is not just, howdy guys, howdy. This is an increase that not just basically is like a boost from the COLA, cost of living adjustment. This is a boost on top of that. All right, so let's talk about this real quick. We have the 2022 midterm elections coming up. And as you guys know, basically that is when all the politicians will get up in front of us and tell us that they are going to promise the world and the stars and the ponies and the unicorns. And when they do that, they're going to have to go ahead and make it look real, which means that they're going to be talking about things that groups want that could sway the vote one way or the other. So let's talk about that. First, we need to recognize what are the groups that are likely to sway an election, whether it's for a Senate, a House, whatever. Those are the groups that have a large number of Republicans and Democrats in both, that are in that group. So you got a group has a bunch of Republicans and a bunch of Democrats in it. An example of that would be the disabled. The SSI people, there tends to be more Democrats than Republicans. The SSDI people, there tends to be more Republicans than Democrats. So, and both are around the same size. So it all kind of evens out. So if you look at the 16.2, 16.3 million people that comprise SSDI and SSI, you've probably got a strong share of Republicans and Democrats. Now, with that said, that means if we do some just, fiddling with math, around 8 million are essentially Republicans, around 8 million are Democrats. That means that basically 8 million people of those two groups could essentially, if swinging one way or the other, decide an election. Okay, so at the presidential level, it could decide that election. At a House level, a Senate level, anything below a president, it could decide that. Okay, so what that means is they're going to spend a lot of time on essentially figuring out what are these groups that they want to try and win over. And the two main up-to-bat laws, things that they want to make into law, are essentially the Supplemental Security Income Restoration Act, which improves SSI benefits significantly, and the Social Security 2100 Act, which improves basically Social Security stuff in general. Like it's an in general act. It improves all that stuff. And the main part of it is to go ahead and make things better for Social Security recipients across the board, and also make the trust funds last to 2100, and also go ahead and basically tax the wealthier people at a higher level for what their earnings are, etc. Okay, so let's talk about this. What is going to happen? Well, this bill/act has not been reintroduced properly to the Senate or the House at this time, but it is likely to be reintroduced because they were waiting for the Steve Goss actuarial notes, the accounting for the SSA and where they think everything's going due to the whole COVID situation. They were waiting for those documents. And those documents are going to help them understand how much money they need to make the Social Security trust funds last all the way to 2100. Now, the SSDI trust fund is not in absolute ridiculous dire situation. They did lose like 7-8 years off of how much they were supposed to have in reserve because of COVID and people not working and paying into the system. However, the one that's really in trouble is the retirement, trust fund, because that lost only a year, but that year is very close. Now we're at 2033. After the actuarial notates for 2021 are over, it'll probably push down to 2032, which means we're like 10 years away once we hit next year from that particular trust fund, the retirement trust fund, running out. So they need because a lot more people draw retirement, a heck of a lot more money for retirement benefit people to put into that trust fund to keep them solvent all the way to 2100, which is what that bill is all about. Now, because we know essentially that, putting it as simply as I can, the Democrats are going to want to try and make some of those promises that they made prior to Biden taking into the White House. They want to make them come true. Problem is, the Biden White House has not been so successful with all the plans they had initially going through these past so many months, which means the Republicans are going to capitalize on that. When the 2022 midterms come around, the Republicans are going to be hammering that you can trust them and not the Democrats. The Democrats will be hammering, if you just leave us in control, we'll pass whatever you want. So those are the two things that will be happening, right? You should trust us, the Republicans, to take care of this. Even though if the Republicans get in, they still don't have the White House, which means that they still need the pen of the president, unless it has to go all the way through again. And then they don't need the pen of the president. But, the bottom line is the Republicans need to win one seat for the Senate, which is no biggie. They could easily do that. But they need to win a lot of seats for the House. I don't know if that'll happen. So with that said, what I foresee happening is what I like to call the great, just terrible situation. And that's where probably the Republicans will win back the Senate, but the Democrats will retain the House, which creates a gridlock, which means nothing will get through. It just won't get through. They're not going to. We have a two-party system now. That's the problem with it. Is nothing will get through. It's a gridlock. Late Justice Scalia, he is my favorite. Well, he passed away, but he was my favorite. He still is my favorite justice. Brilliant Italian man. Basically would go ahead and talk about the gridlock, and that's exactly what I think will happen. Unless one of these parties succeeds with essentially the full House and Senate, or with the Republicans, or full House and Senate with the Democrats, kind of like what they have right now. The problem you guys face is essentially this. Can you trust the Democrats to pass these bills when they promise to do it and haven't done it? Can you pass the Republicans to pass these bills who tend to be anti-Social Security benefits, which doesn't make sense to me because the Republicans are always like, rah, 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 America. And, that's land and people. And they're good at protecting land sometimes. And they're not so protecting of the Social Security benefits for the people. So so do you trust the people who we can't really trust because they promised and didn't make it come through? That's the Democratic side. Or can we trust the people who have been consistently anti-Social Security benefits? And that's the bottom line here that I want you to understand. We don't really have two good scenarios set up for passing these bills, but for this. As you know, these 2022 elections are pretty much just as important as the 2024 elections, because if the Republicans all get in, then they will go ahead and they will kick Biden out. That's what they'll do. They'll just do it through the presidential means. And, at that point, they will, bring in somebody else, and they'll just do the same thing over and over until they go ahead and get a Republican in there. And that's the new game that they'll play. If the Democrats remain in power, what will happen is basically they'll want to make good by giving more to the people so that the people continue to vote for them into the 2024 election. So what you have here is coming up with the 2022 election cycle. The 2022 election cycle is literally deciding the 2024 election cycle. Because if the Republicans get in for the House and Senate, they'll kick Biden out, right? If the Jude Gallagher, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I need notifications when you update. You rock. I don't know how to do that, but I can always look it up later. How to send people specific notifications. So what's happening is this. Up to the 2022 elections, we will essentially, as people who want to see the SSI Restoration Act and the Social Security 2100 Act, we will become the single child with divorcing parents. Just hear me out on this. We will essentially become the kids that get whatever we want for Christmas, whatever we want for whatever holiday, Hanukkah, whatever. Doesn't matter. We are getting presents. And here's why. mommy and daddy, the Republicans and the Democrats, will want to make us happy as kids because we are in control to some degree of the voting, right? And as a result of that, we can decide if they get to stay in or not. And since it's a two-party system, we decide whether one party stays in or not, which means the Democrats are going to want to say, we promised you these things when Biden wanted to, go into the White House. He got into the White House. We're giving them to you now, right? We had other things going on. The Democrats will say, we had the whole thing with Afghanistan. We had the whole thing with COVID. We had the whole thing with this and that. And then the big storms and yada, yada. The Republicans will say, how can you trust them? They haven't given it to you yet. Why didn't they give it to you yet? They could have given it to you before this whole election cycle. So I see Faith Moore. Thank you. $4.99. I love the picture. Critical hit. Gee, that's awesome. I don't know how to do any of that stuff or put images in there, but that's really awesome. That's really good. And I'm sorry, guys, if my videos don't have like cool animation stuff, I am going to look into that, how to do that. I just signed up for Twitter the other day, and I have somebody and her daughter actually, they're working as like a team to educate me on how to use Twitter, which is just amazing because my Twitter or Fandango-y knowledge or whatever those other programs are is very limited. So I really appreciate all the help you guys give me. So I want to say, and I want Faith Moore, again, thank you so much for the donation. And Jude Gallagher, again, thank you so much for the donation because I literally use them to buy dog treats. Howdy, Denise, Brian. So what's going to happen is we have a unique situation. We could essentially get what we want. We just have to be organized. The Social Security 2100 Act is important because it basically goes and taxes the wealthy at a higher amount of earnings where they normally wouldn't be taxed. They get taxed up to a level for Social Security benefits, and then anything above that level, they wouldn't get taxed. Well, they're raising that level up higher to be more now. So something to watch out for, though. They're trying to pass this taxation as part of the 3.5, 1 trillion act, right? They're trying to pass this new Social Security taxation, but they're not including all the language and benefits to the people that were in the Social Security 2100 Act. So I remember 6 months ago, I was warning you guys, don't let the current, Democrats and Republicans, but in this case, it's more Democrats, don't let them get away with taxing the rich more, but not giving the people all the benefits that they're supposed to get with it. Well, that's what it appears is happening. And they're doing that through this massive mega thing. And here's why. They're going to try and tax wealthy people more, but then they're restricted as to what else they can pass because they're not supposed to do what they're doing with these other massive spending bills, these trillion dollar spending bills with Social Security benefits. So it's like they're trying to finagle bagel us on this thing, and it's not cool because at the end of the day, the people who get screwed over are the disabled. And I just want to point out one last thing, and I'm going to answer some of the questions here. As I study claims, and I've done thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of 10,000s of 10,000s of 10,000s of 10,000s of 10,000s of claims, as I've studied them, I have worked for people that you would define as pure absolute evil, individuals that hurt little kids in the worst ways, people that want to do great harm to schools and prepare to do those things, all the way to the other side of the coin for literally people that should be wearing capes. I've represented them. I've represented heroes of the American people who became disabled. I would like you to understand that at the end of the day, the whole smattering of disabled individuals, they always seem to get the short stick on benefits and being taken care of and things like that. And it always comes down to the politicians giving them the short stick. Now, you could say it's for this reason or that reason or this reason or that reason. It's like some of the rules, like the SSI, marriage penalty rule. It's almost like the idea there is to limit people from essentially having enough money to have more kids because they're both disabled and they don't want the genes to pass on. That's almost what it looks like. They won't ever say that, but it kind of looks like that, So my thing to you on this is this. I would like you to understand going forward that the politicians very rarely are in your best interest. There are a few that support you. You will see them supporting you specifically through co-signing onto these bills that increase benefits, increase, all these options for the disabled. But, and this is a big but, it is almost always true that these same politicians will throw the bill that helps the disabled, they will throw it out the fastest before other bills that they're promoting as a trading scheme to barter with other politicians to get other things passed. So I'm excited to see you guys. And we just had somebody contact me by email and said, "Hey, look, I used to build websites." I'm like, awesome, because I build websites. She's like, "Hey, I used to build websites. I'm down. I'm ready to do this group." And everybody has been sending me amazing names that the group could be. One thing that I've just kind of called it in the back corner of my mind is the Disabled Caucus or disabledcaucus.com or whatever. And the reason for that is it's just easy for me to think. And caucus is like the word that they use for a group of people that vote in a particular direction or a particular thing. Jude Gallagher, wow. Thank you. Ben Everything, what about rental assistance for 6 months till this madness stops? I got to do a video on rental assistance because honestly, like, I don't even think the politicians have a good idea as to what's going on. Florida hasn't even pushed forward their whole thing. They're getting funding from the federal government as to what to do about it. People are going to be homeless left and right. And the funny thing about it is that, like, they had all this time to figure out what they were going to do. And I don't, I'll research it where it's at right now. I knew where it was 3 months ago, which was pretty much only in very, very heavy blue states was progressing forward. The red states are not progressing forward right now with what their plan is for it. You're right. I'll do a video on it. I have not been spending enough time specifically on learning what's going to be happening with rental assistance. And sadly, there are a lot of disabled people that are protected, and then a lot of disabled people who are going to be totally screwed over. And here's the rental schemes that disabled people fit into if they don't own something. Number one, they're renting from a private party. Number two, they're renting from some sort of organization and or company, which sets up you give us a percentage of your income that comes from your benefits, and that pays for your room and board. And then there's your Section 8, your government backed, yada, yada. So here's how it works with the whole rental assistance thing when it comes to bad things happening. The private people will basically be in a bad situation because they didn't pay everything to their rent. And as a result of that, the rental group will be like, well, we can't kick you out, but we sure as hell are going to be raising the prices. And they have a legal right to do that, which means that the person who's disabled can't afford it. And then they have to move out. The number two option, which is probably one of the safest groups, is essentially the places like Aspire Health Partners and other groups that buy up these motels and then set them up for people to be able to rent those rooms by a percentage of what their benefits are. Those people are usually very safe unless there's some sort of caveat to them being able to stay there. And then they could always change the caveats, etc. So they're not as safe as the next group, which is Section 8, which still has its caveats. But, and here's something I want to point out about Section 8 real quick. If you are searching for a Section 8 rental, call up the realtors in that area. They're the ones who buy all these apartments and buy all these buildings and stuff like that, and then set them up with Section 8. Just call them. If you have the ability to rent one or you have funds from disability benefits, just call them. They'll rent you it. You'll skip, a lot of the hassle and process. You might not get as many protections, but if you're looking and you're not going to be able to get on that list for a long time, or you're on that list and you're going to have to wait 2 years, just call the realtors in the area. They're the ones who buy all the properties, okay? And then turn them into Section 8 options. All right, now I'm going to answer questions real quick. Let's see. Been everything. I was homeless for many years. It was never PTSD. Okay, gotcha. The rental assistance, there's no winners, is people not paying the rent and landlords are screwed over. Yeah, it's sad. They're going to have to do some sort of like catch-up forgiveness program where they forgive the things that the mortgage companies need from the landowners, and they forgive the rental people as well. They're just going to have to do another like PPP loan for, living situation. They're just going to have to do that. It is what it is. Let's see, everything. But I had a good attorney, good dogs, good judge in one. Hello, Walt. Howdy. Ben Wright. Gotcha. So, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, I think that if we're really smart about this, we can essentially get these politicians to realize that the disabled people are ripping pissed and that they will vote all of them out, all the Democrats out, all the Republicans out, put in a bunch of, people that are, the T this and the, pot party that and the Mary J party this and the whatever party that, whatever. They could put in whatever party at that point, so long as they understand that the agenda is to pass those bills and rights that would help the disabled. All right, so here's what I've done so far, because we're going to finish up the night. It's 12:38 a.m. Bottom line, very important. Bottom line, I want you to understand this. What I've done so far is I purchased the URLs specifically for disabledcaucus.com. I have picked out a website template to be able to upload specifically to that server that's been set up to go ahead and be for whatever you decide the name is. I just bought that as like a holder, a placeholder. I have started to collect names who are excited to be part of this nonprofit group. And of those people, they're going to have to come together and figure out who they want their leader to be and how they're going to go ahead and organize things and do stuff, because I don't have enough time to do it. Like literally, I spent essentially since 5 until about 9 p.m. working into the dark. And here is quite literally me working with the last part of it. I was out there working on the judge's stand on the farm that I grew up on. And that's me just doing stuff so that video right there is about an hour and a half worth of time, but realistically, obviously at a very, very fast pace, which is just me painting and doing that stuff in the middle of the night. So yeah, basically, I'm not going to have enough time to lead it, but the point is this, I'm more than willing to help you guys set it up, because look, you guys have a powerful voice. You can tell the Democrats and the Republicans what you want. And we have a shitty two-party system. Other countries have like 5 parties. They have multiple parties, and the parties have to group up and get together to make something happen. There's all these deals and negotiations beyond just 2 parties. And I think that's one of the big problems with America. Obviously, we get massively manipulated by this 2-party system. All you have to do in the 2-party system is get these people hating these people, and then they forget about essentially all the rights and freedoms that they're losing. So the point here is, at the end of the day, my focus with you guys is to help you create this nonprofit group that will get you all to vote for the bills that are basically going to give you more stuff and, give a better lifestyle to those who are disabled. Because let's call it like it is. A lot of SSI people, they got an empty fridge, the toilet's broken, they're not happy. Let's call it like it is. Oh, I want to bring up something too. Somebody sent me this and I thought it was important. And my response might have been a little bit too aggressive. Because I can be like that, and I don't want to be that person. So I'm not going to say the name of the person, but I was probably too aggressive in my response, and my apologies for that. It was late at night, and I just said what was on my brain. That person said, "Please consider financially challenged instead of the poor disabled people. Just my personal preference, no disrespect intended. I think you seem like a compassionate and intelligent man." And my response, and I don't know why, when I read it now, I'm like, this is super aggressive. Why was it this aggressive? I didn't mean it to be aggressive. I was just super tired. I think it was around like, I don't know, maybe 1 a.m., whatever. But here's basically what I responded with. Hey, I don't know why I should respond professionally, like cordially, whatever. That wouldn't be responsive to the ending. But hey, financially challenged does not mean poor. That's a phrase that comes from the investment groups from the 70s. They're selling that now as a softer version of the reality. The reality is people in SSI often live in a small room with a broken toilet and an empty fridge. They aren't with $5 million and financially challenged because the opportunity costs $10 million to invest into to gain $15 million more. So what I'm saying there is financially challenged is like what you see in the financial industry. Oh, I wish I could afford to buy into that opportunity to make tons of money. Financially challenged is not what SSI people are going through. That's not the same thing. When talking to a senator about passing a bill, you would say extreme poverty through their disability, chronically homeless, etc. Financially challenged is from a diction point wrong. It also sends the wrong message to those in charge of the law. It also softens the reality and does a disservice to those suffering. Please consider the poor disabled people. Here's the thing. Poor disabled people, in my opinion, is not even strong enough in itself, because SSI people and even SSDI people The only people on disability benefits that are doing okay are people that are getting a VA check and an SSDI check. Those are the only people that are really doing okay. And even then, it's not like amazing, But the bottom line is, walk with me here on this. The SSI people, especially, they're suffering. So a lot of them are getting $586 a month. How do you live on that? You don't live on that. What do? You rent a shed and then you buy barely any food. I mean, the food stamps, they drop it down. Like, why do we have SSI should have full food stamps? To me, that makes sense. SSI money is for you to be able to buy stuff like a place to live, air conditioning, heat, whatever, and then you get food stamps. That to me makes sense. Reducing the food stamps, that makes no sense to me. What are we going to do? We're going to start out there. And that's when and there was somebody that commented and really opened up my mind on this. The bottle, yeah, exactly. I have learned not to text Walter past 10 p.m. Yeah, I don't know why my texts are so aggressive that late. And they're not meant to be aggressive. Well, sometimes they are, but they're not meant to be that aggressive. It's just I'm just throwing it out there to the person. But what I've learned is this: disabled people literally live in financial slavery. It's like the American government doesn't want them to date, have kids, do stuff, travel, have holidays, have friendships, relationships, be able to buy into services. They don't, you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell are you going to buy with $586? What the hell are you going to buy with $796 a month? I mean, you're literally living off of barely any food and like salt packets that you took from the local store. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, if we're going to do it, we should do it right. That's all I'm saying. If we're going to do SSI, we should do it right. When Nixon set it up, when Nixon set it up, it was right. It was much better than what it is right now. It was way better than what it is right now. Right now, it's so restricted. Nothing's been increased. It's a crap show. You wouldn't think Nixon was the guy. He was the guy. But anyways, I hope you guys are having a wonderful night. I hope you're doing okay. No, I think it is a form of slavery, because think about it. Prison is just where you're encapsulated. Slavery is where your choices are restricted as well, to the point. Well, I mean, prison, they restrict your choices as well, but it's like they control you. You know what I mean? Like prison, yeah, I guess prison, they control you as well. But slavery, it's like a lifelong thing now. You know what I mean? Like prison, you might get out at some point, and maybe you'll not be disabled some. But slavery, that's like it's the rest of your life, unless you live in the period in which you could become not a slave. But to me, it's more of a slavery. It's that severe. I think prison is a step down. It's the element down in the hierarchy from essentially slavery. I think slavery is the form of like, for life, you are going to be stuck like this and not be able to get ahead. Prison, you might be able to one day get out and get ahead, but slavery is like for life. And that's what for most people is essentially, that's what it is. It's sad. It doesn't make sense to me. And look, here's the thing. I used to be one of those, I'm not going to say idiots, but I used to be one of those people that would sit back and be like, how are we going to afford more? And then I started to do the math on it. I was like, we could totally afford it. We could totally afford it. There's more than enough to afford it. When we give countries more money than all the disabled people combined, with the increases that would come from these new bills, then there's a problem, right? There's a problem there, All right, guys. I'm going to catch you a little bit later. You have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope you're doing super duper well. Please remember, if you get anything from this video, that the great shit show of politics is going to begin in the not too distant future. Also, everything's going to get really expensive. That 5.9 increase isn't going to do anything. The cost of food is going to go up a total of 10% over the next 2 months. That's what they're saying, that are the grocery store owners. So like when you're sitting there being like, I got 5.9, your food's going to raise over 10%. And it's just going to eat that up. So your food bill alone will eat up whatever increase they did. In fact, your food bill will now be so much higher that, putting it simply, it'll be like you never even got an increase to begin with. And that's just the food category, not the heating bill, not the AC, not the electric, not the blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff is even going to be accounted. It's just going to be food that sucks it up. I will catch you guys later. You go and have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope you're doing okay. And I'm really excited about this nonprofit where you guys are going to be able to choose how you're going to throw your votes behind people to make your lives better. It's like the direction of getting the disabled people organized and making demands and scaring the bejesus out of essentially politicians, which I'm all for. I'm all for. I like that. That's, to me, like, they work for us. Let's remind them. I'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful night, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.